Me?
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, you talked.
No.
You were helpful. Are we recording? Okay. All right, so welcome everybody. I'm Ann, I'm a physical therapist. Today's topic, we're going to be doing talking about meditation and why it helps and how it can be done and how do you do it. Disclaimer, I am not a meditation teacher, okay? But hopefully some of this information will give you some resources, some things to try. I'm all about giving people as many tools as they can to do at home. The more empowered you feel, the less suffering you seem to have with pain. So basically I wanted to cover a little bit about what meditation does when we do meditation. And we know this because of this functional MRI. Are you familiar with functional MRIs? It's basically just they put people in an MRI and they tell them to think and they can see what happens to the blood flow. Okay. So we know the areas of the brains that are lit up when we're just not doing anything. So they put people in there and said, hey, don't do anything. So it turns out there are 4 different things that our brain tends to do on its own without any help at all. So as we're drifting off to sleep, as we're not doing anything during the day, at one point or another, this is what our brain defaults to. The first thing is the inner critic. This critic is responsible for looking around at our life and our surroundings and saying, how could this be better? How could we make it better? And what's wrong with it and what can we do to make it better? And so one of the things that tends to happen when we get kind of stuck in this default state is we tend to get depressed because nothing is ever quite right. It's either not cool enough or too cool, or it's, the pain medication didn't work as well as we hoped it would, or, the doctor's office is running too slow, or whatever. I mean, there's always something that can be changed. And so if we're constantly picking apart what's going on in our world and constantly finding fault with it, as an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense to use your free time when you're not fighting bears or trying to find, food. How can we make our world better? How can we improve things? How can we make sure that something doesn't happen to us in the future or that we're prepared for the future or so forth? Okay, so some of these things do make sense, but if we get kind of stuck there, it can cause problems. The second thing that we do is time travel. People are like, okay, what is time travel? Well, we're thinking about what happened to us in the past. We're thinking about how things are going to be in the future. And we're kind of comparing that with how things are in the present. So this idea that we sometimes get, well, as soon as such and such happens, things will be better. Well, if you notice, that really never does happen, but we still think that way. We still think, well, as soon as this happens, we'll be better, or as soon as I can get to see this particular doctor, things will get better. The other way is if we're into the past. Well, things were so much better before my accident, or things were better before this happened, or things were, I wish they could go back to the way things were, okay? Or things were so much worse back then. We get stuck in the PTSD, where we're reliving that trauma over and over and over again. So that's things that when we get stuck in this time travel, that's what can happen, is we can get a lot of anxiety about the future, a lot of frustration about the current state of our being, or some post-traumatic stress disorder because we're too busy reliving all of that. The next thing that we do, so we have the critic, the time traveler, and we have self-reference. So this is where our brain kind of sits around and figures out, okay, what kind of person am I? I am the kind of person who really never gives up on people. I'm the kind of person who is always there to help out when somebody needs me. I'm the kind of person who doesn't complain if she's in pain. I am the kind of person who, so this kind of self-referencing, trying to decide who we are, trying to find our place in the world, trying to find out where we fit in, where we belong, okay? If we get kind of stuck in that, we can get into kind of a rigid state of, well, I can't do that because I'm not the kind of person who will try that, or I'm not the kind of person who will do that. I can't change this or that because that's not how things are, okay? So we have the critic, the time traveler, the self-reference, and then the last thing that our brain does in its default state is social reference. So we're thinking about other people. We're thinking about what they think of us. We're thinking about how we fit in with them. We're thinking about what we need to do to either gain approval or fit in or make sure that they understand us and what's going on with us. This kind of getting stuck here can lead to social anxiety. It can lead to us feeling like we're worried about what other people think. They think we're lazy because we're not doing enough. Think of us as whiny if we tell people what is happening with our bodies. And it also can lead to us using too much energy, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we tend to take that back. Can lead to us using too much energy because we have wanting to please other people, and so we'll go above and beyond what we really have available to us. Make sense? Okay. So what happens when people start to meditate? And we'll go over this whole concept of meditation in a little bit because it's pretty fuzzy. Most people are like, yeah, I tried that once and it didn't work. Right? But what happens when people start meditating? Basically, what happens is, so they put people in this functional MRI machine and said, okay, now meditate. And the areas that were responsible for fear and pain decreased. The blood flow to that area decreased. It improves emotion regulation, meaning that you're less likely to have the road rage and that person cut you off. You know, or to cry because you dropped the dish on the floor that you just cleaned and that you have no more energy to clean it again, right? It improves blood flow to the rational, logic, and perspective centers, so that allows us to have more realistic threat perception. So even, you know, when we're more rested and we start to meditate, we understand, yeah, it's painful, but it's not dangerous. Okay, so this isn't going to kill me. Yeah, it sucks, but I understand that this is not progressive, or if it is progressive, that I'm doing X, Y, and Z about it, and that we've got that threat covered. It can improve the stress response, and our stress response is the fight or flight system, okay? And when you're in pain all day long, you are in fight or flight all day long. You are fighting a bear that's inside of you. And so meditation tends to improve this response and make it more efficient. And possibly due to two reasons. One is that we're actually giving it a chance to rest and relax. Okay, so we're kicking in the opposite system, the one that's supposed to put us back together after the threat is over with. And the other is possibly due to the improved threat assessment that we talked about before. Okay. It also improves function of the insula, and this is a part of the brain that actually helps to monitor your body sensations. And so this can lead to the improved threat assessment by having more accurate information about what's actually happening in the body rather than what we fear is happening in the body. That makes some sense? Yeah? Okay. The other thing that happens is that you have more gray matter. So the brain has two parts, basically. Well, in one way of looking at it, it has two parts. It has this white matter, which is the highways, and then the gray matter where all the stuff is processed. Okay, and it improves the amount of gray matter that you have. It actually thickens that part of your brain, which allows you to have better attention and better emotion regulation, better mental flexibility, and better processing of what's happening around you. So it makes you smarter. Okay. Any questions about the background on why you would want to meditate, what's going to happen, what happens when you do it? Terrific. Huh?
Just hope we could do it.
I didn't know
any of it, yeah.
How long do we do it for?
Well, you know, as long as you can tolerate, pretty much. I personally think the first...
tolerate myself.
Right. That's the key right there, is you get so annoyed with yourself, you're like, oh. But that's when you start listening to your thoughts. which is going to be key here in just a minute. So basically, the meditation helps you to separate yourself, your own person, from the experience that you're having in your day-to-day life. Okay? So how the heck? Okay? Basically, you can't. Yoga is a good way to do meditation. Okay, if you can do it. If you can do it. Basically, first thing I want everybody to do right now is I want you to, if you can, just go ahead and stand up. And sit down. Okay, now everybody take a nice deep breath in. And now stand up. Take a nice deep breath in. And now sit down. Anybody notice anything different from the first time you stood up to the second time?
I felt lightheaded.
You felt lightheaded?
I was going to say I felt lighter, but not lightheaded.
I've been loopy for about 2 weeks now.
That's nothing new. Nothing new. Anybody notice anything else different?
Smoother. I think the second time I just smoother.
Just smoother? Yeah. I noticed everybody stood up a little slower the second time. It's more relaxed.
Yoga, that's how they teach us to get
Just to take a breath.
well, that, it's how you place your feet and
Uh-huh.
stuff, and use your legs, not your arms.
And don't
get out
push
of
up,
your-
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Good. So, just that little breath, just that little pause before you stood up made a little bit of a difference in how you stood up. Okay. So that's just my first, you don't have to do that. That one's not a meditation really at home. But that was just the point to try to explain that when you do something, actually thinking about it, you take a little pause before you do it. It does change the quality of it a little bit. All right. So my favorite book on meditation, I don't even know if you can buy this anymore, and it may be out of print, but it's Lunchtime Enlightenment. Okay. And it's just very, very short, thin little book. It's got a billion different ideas, well, maybe not a billion, different ideas for how to meditate in here. There is not one right way to meditate. Okay. There are as many ways to meditate as there are people in the world. Everybody does it just a little bit different. Okay, so you kind of have to fiddle around and find out what kind of helps you and what works for you. My favorite way is the first one on the list after the stand-up part, and that is gibberish. It's really hard to think thoughts when you're going in your head, right? So just let whatever sounds want to come out. And it's really hard to think actual thought. We think in words. So if you are making all these sounds in your head, you're not thinking words. And so that kind of helps to shut things down just a little bit to get things going, okay? You can do that for the entire, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, however long you want to sit. Or you can kind of just do it for a little bit to start with, just to kind of get everything to shut down a little bit, okay? But the whole idea of meditation really isn't to shut off your thoughts, okay? The whole idea is to kind of just watch them, to be separate from them, because you aren't your thoughts. Thoughts are something that your brain does on a pretty regular basis. It does it without you even trying. We talked a lot about what the brain does when it's just resting, and it's very busy. It's thinking a lot about how we can make things better in our world and how we can guard against possible dangers and how we can keep things from happening again what they happened before. I mean, it's really very busy and it's got purpose, but it's not who you are. It's not what you are, okay? So the whole purpose is to kind of step back and kind of clinically just kind of watch them and say, that's an interesting thought. And you kind of come up with some really weird stuff. I know when I tried to eat a bowl of berries, so blueberries and strawberries with whipped cream on them one time, and tried to eat them because I eat really, really fast. I shovel food. Like, I've been known to eat a Big Mac and a fruit and yogurt parfait in less than 3 minutes. Just scarf it down. Okay. Okay. So I said, I'm going to take 20 minutes and I'm going to eat this bowl of berries. It's going to take me 20 minutes to do it. And the oddest thoughts come through my head the entire time. It's like they're going to decay. I'm not going to get decay. But that's what went through my head. Somebody's going to take them. You know? And I mean, so it kind of was very enlightening to see what kinds of processes are happening in my brain. Whether or not they're, you know, you don't believe everything you think. Obviously, that's not all real. Nobody's going to take my berries. They're not going to decay while they're there. You know, they're not going to disappear. They're not going to fall through a black hole. You know, they're going to be there 20 minutes when I'm eating that last bite. They're still going to be there. It's still going to be fresh. It's still going to be good. So the whole point is to kind of just step back and look and say, gosh, some of these thoughts are really kind of funny. You know, some of these thoughts are really weird. I know on occasion, well, one time I was doing some work with a lady who had both her knees done. And I was working on her muscles in her top and bottom, and they were so tight. And I said to her, gosh, it's like you're trying to hold your bottom leg on, you know, the bottom part of your leg on. It's like trying to hold the knee together. And she said, you know, it's really funny that you say that, because before I had this done, my son told me that they cut off your knee, or cut your leg off, basically at the knee mostly, before they put the prosthetics in. And you know, after that, she was much better. Her muscle tension was much better. It was figuring out that somewhere in the back of her mind, she was in danger of losing the bottom part of her leg because they cut it off, you know? Because that's what her son had said. And so it was kind of realizing that this faulty thought was back there that made her, you know, relax a little, allow these muscles to relax a little bit. Now, obviously, that was not a conscious thought. And her holding on was not conscious. That was not a conscious decision that she was making. I'm going to hold my legs on. No. I mean, that would be silly. But again, kind of seeing some of these thoughts can really help you to go, oh yeah, that's silly. Or, you know, or that's maybe not true. Or, oh, I can see where that is maybe contributing to some of my suffering right now. Okay? All right, so gibberish is one way to do it. Laughing is another way. And I have yet to figure out exactly, the book didn't really explain it very well, but apparently there are people that have laughing clubs. Like they get together for an hour a week and they just laugh. And so I'm thinking, do they play comedy, or do they just sit there and go, ha 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 ha, until everybody else starts laughing?
Because for an hour, that'd be like
that would be a long time to laugh, but it's good for your belly. Apparently, you know, that's like 100 crunches at least, right?
Yeah. Just a minute laugh, I think, helps relax you sometimes.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
you laugh
Laughter.
when you're stressed, you're just kind of like. Yeah.
Laughter's a really
Wish
big
we had a
thing.
laughter button.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah. That's once in a while I say, oh, I needed that, you know,
Yes.
they're laughing about something, you know, and I go, boy, I really needed that.
Well, it sends signals to your brain. The smiling and the laughing actually send signals to your brain that say it's okay to release feel-good chemicals because we're not in danger right now, okay? When you're in danger all the time, whether you have pain a lot, your fight-or-flight system is on, and it stops making the serotonin, the dopamine as much, which are the happy chemicals in your brain, because who needs to be happy and relaxed and chill when you're fighting a bear, right? So you don't make as many of those chemicals. So when you laugh or smile, that increases that production.
Hurts my jaw bones.
You just,
Both sides.
oh no, well maybe you need to go see if they've got some TMJ. We'll check on
Had
that.
a broke.
Oh yeah. I'm amazed you're still alive. I gotta say, I'm just telling you right now, I'm amazed. Okay, so the two kinds that you will find probably most often online if you do a search for meditation is the noting or mindfulness meditation and the loving kindness meditations. The noting and mindfulness, they want you to, oftentimes they'll tell you to make note of your breath. So make note of, you know, when you breathe in, you breathe out. You don't try to change it. You don't try to breathe any specific way. You just breathe in, breathe out, and think in, out, or rise, fall, with whatever you're doing. Now, with any of these, you know, you'll find places that will tell you, well, you have to sit in this particular posture or whatever. And honest and truly, it doesn't matter. You can lay down if you want to, whatever is comfortable, okay? Because the whole point is not to be uncomfortable through the whole thing. The point is to kind of watch the thoughts and see what's happening. So the noting and the mindfulness, you can choose the breath if that's something that you connect with. You can also pick any other body sensation that you want to. If it's feeling your feet on the floor, it could be, you know, taking your pulse and feeling your heartbeat. It could be really anything else that you want. Sometimes people, if they have COPD or breathing difficulties, will find it very hard to focus on their breath because they're afraid, and that causes anxiety with breathing. So they'll choose a different sensation to pay attention to. And this one, you know, you're mainly just looking to see, is your brain wandering, okay? And if it is, just you bring it back, you say, okay, I'm thinking, and bring it back to whatever you're paying attention to. Now, the whole point isn't not to wander. The point is to notice when you are wandering. Does that make some sense? Okay. So when you notice that you're wandering, pat yourself on the back, say, good job, I noticed, you know, and sometimes you won't notice for 5 minutes. You'll be like, wow, I have no idea where I just was. But you notice now, so you bring it back to whatever you're paying attention to, okay? Ideally, you will find a place that's fairly distraction-free, but the distractions can be something that you just kind of notice. You know, somebody's yelling next door, or there's birds chirping, or there's a thunderstorm happening, or, you know, the alarm's going off, Mom, and the dog wants out, whatever. You know, that sort of thing can be just something that you notice as being part of your world. The last one is the loving kindness, and that is instead of paying attention to some sensation in your body, you pay attention to a feeling, okay? And this feeling is often one that we associate with a favorite person or place. It can be a memory where you remember feeling very loved and very safe. And then the idea is that once you get really good at feeling that feeling, whether it's you're thinking of your grandmother and you're thinking about how it felt to be in her arms and how it felt to have her read you stories, and have that feeling expand out to yourself, have it expand out to your family members, your coworkers, your doctors, people that are next door that you can't stand, you know, to have it expand out to include everybody, okay? That's the idea. But you can work with it as easily or as, you know, in as small a venue as you want to. And the idea is just to kind of focus in on that feeling of well-being and send that loving kindness. Now, I do like to do that one and think of, you know, like my sister or somebody that may be having a problem, you know, and use it as kind of a prayer situation where you're sending somebody who has a health issue, sending them love and kindness, and sending them healing vibes and praying for their health. You can do this, you know, in terms of sending it to yourself. And sometimes I will admit that is one of the hardest things to do when you are so frustrated with your body and so frustrated with how you're feeling all the time and you're angry with the fact that your back just won't get any better. It's really hard to send yourself loving kindness. So that one can be a challenge. Okay. Know that meditation isn't clearing the mind. It's watching it. It's just watching it. Some ways to think about meditation can be like, there's one person who has described it as gardening. Like when you're in your garden or you're in your hothouse and you look at one plant and you water it and you trim it and you give it what it needs, and then you're done with that and you move on to the next one. And that can be your thoughts. So something comes up, you pay attention to it, you say, look at you, okay, I know that you must need this, or this is why you come up, set it aside. Then something else comes up. And so you can kind of use this time as processing, but understand that it's your brain that's doing it, and you're just kind of watching. You're not your thoughts. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, but very difficult to do. I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I got 10 thoughts going. I can't just get on one thought.
Right? Right. Well, but you'll notice if you sit and watch these for a while, it's the same 10 thoughts. So if you can grab one.
Yeah. The other ones were buttoned in front of it.
Right. The other way to think of it is that the way that meditation impacts you isn't while you're meditating necessarily. Okay, you know, everybody hears about, oh, I reached nirvana while I was meditating, or, you know, I've heard these reports, and I don't, it might exist, I don't know, I've never been there. But it's kind of like how you feel after you've cleaned house. Like you come home, you do everything you need to do, you clean your house, everything is done, and you can sit back, and after you're done meditating, sit back and you're like, that weight's gone. Okay, so those are some ways to think about meditation rather than this scary thing that, you know, this mystical scary thing that people tell you should do. Okay. Some pitfalls with meditation. If you have a lot of trauma in your history, or if there's some emotional issues and you find them coming up when you try, go get help. Find somebody to help you process through those in a safe place. If they become really intrusive, then that's going to be counterproductive. So you'll want to get some help with that. Okay. Alrighty. So anybody have any questions?
But you know, it's interesting, like feel that we're taught breathing is very much stress.
Yes.
With yoga. And then another thing I like at the end of class, we kind of, well, you know, you're sitting there just relaxing.
Pause between the end of class and the beginning of the rest of your day, right?
And the breathing part, I think, has helped me because I have pulmonary issues. And I wasn't a smoker. It's just being around secondhand smoke, you know, and that brought on my issues. So it's been good for me.
Good. Good. So when you're in yoga and you're concentrating on your breathing, what happens if you have pain? What do you do?
We are taught not to if you're having really a hard pain, you know, and that you're taught to either not try to work through it, or you can modify some of the movements. There's a couple of them I'm having to modify right now in that. So,
so the idea is not to ignore the pain.
Well, you know, it's kind of hard just to ignore it in that you just kind of have to.
You're not supposed to
ignore it. If you find
it.
it's something that's causing you too much pain, either don't do it or she shows you how to modify it.
Right, right. And so, yeah, my point in asking the question is you don't ignore the pain.
Right.
So if you're sitting and doing, you know, your meditation and you have these painful sensations come up, our first reaction is to, you know, kind of cringe away from it and to tense up. And that's actually, it's our first reaction, but that's actually counterintuitive. Or it's counterproductive. It doesn't work to reduce the pain. And so the idea of doing this when you have pain and those really painful sensations come up is to watch that, just like you would a thought. Kind of, okay, so how bad is this going to get? You know, just out of curiosity. Nothing you need to do about it or anything, but just, okay, so how bad is this going to get? Can I come up with words that describe this? You know, it's here. You know, when I go to my doctor and they say, well, what's the pain like? You're like, I don't know, it hurts.
It's hard to explain, isn't it?
It is really hard to explain.
What level is your pain in that? Well, it all depends which part of your body's hurting.
Well, that's true too. That's true too. So this was an opportunity then to go, okay, so what does this feel like? Does it feel like I'm being stabbed with a knife? Does it feel like somebody is thumping on my back with a hammer? Does it feel like, you know, what does this feel like? So that I can maybe use some other ways to describe it when I go to my doctor so they can understand better what I'm feeling and what's going on. The interesting thing is that I didn't know this when I went to physical therapy school. Different types of pain have different feelings. So really dull, achy pain tends to be more nerve pain. Or really sharp shooting pain tends to be more tendon or soft tissue. Those kinds of things. And so when your doctor asks you, what does it feel like? We actually really want to know. And it can help us tease out what's happening. So if you're like, well, you know, it's most of the time it's a dull, achy, but if I turn just the right way, then there's a sharp shooting, and you know, then a burning sensation goes down my leg. Well, that tells me a lot. That tells me quite a bit about what's happening with you, and that tells me that there's some nerve issues and that there's some soft tissue issues. Good. Anyway, so you know, that tells me a lot. So if you are in that meditation and you have this feeling come up, kind of very curiously ask, what does this feel like? What is it like? Does it stay there at the same level all the time? Or does it kind of ebb and flow? Does it get worse for a little while and then does it get better? Okay? And most of the time, I've noticed that most of the time, it does not maintain that intensity all the time. If I try to shy away from it, it'll get worse and worse and worse and worse. And the purpose behind that is because your body's trying to get your attention. It's trying to say, hey, we've got a situation going on here. Okay? It's kind of like if you have a pebble in your shoe, it doesn't get any better if you leave it there. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse until finally you take the pebble out. Well, the same thing's happening with your whatever, even if it's a chronic issue, even if it's persistent pain, you still have that same, your body going, hey, hey. I call it Stewie. You guys ever watch Family Guy? No? Family Guy? Anyway, this pop culture reference is starting to get old, but there's Stewie in the Family Guy always goes, Mom, Mom, Mother, Mother, Mom, and starts really getting really obnoxious with it. That's what the pain's like. It starts off, hey, hey, Mom, Mom, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse until you pay attention to it. So a lot of times when you turn and pay attention to it and you face that, it goes, oh, okay, hi, I'm here. So that's the other thing. It's just kind of watch it to see what happens and see if you can open to it and see what's really happening. That does not mean that you should wallow in it, but just acknowledge that it's there. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Lots easier said than done. I will admit that. This is a tool that can be very helpful. If you can get your whole body to kind of calm down, this meditation will help to decrease heart rate and blood pressure and all of that. It will help eventually do that. But the problem is when you're ready to call 911, going, not going to help.
It's what you spoke before that.
Okay, so know that this is a tool that but you have to practice it before it's super useful. Okay. Now, as far as how often and how much, even 5 minutes a day is really helpful. Okay. I think the first 5 minutes are the hardest, so I tend to practice that the most. Because it's getting that brain to just kind of realize that it doesn't have to clamor for my attention anymore, that it's being given that attention, and gives it a chance to kind of calm down a little bit, start to slow down, the thoughts start to slow down. So I tend to practice that the most often, but really any amount of time, 2 minutes. Just
Baby
to
steps.
sit. Baby steps, exactly. I mean,
Work ethic
honest
longer.
and truly, I mean, if you think about sitting with yourself for half an hour, oh my gosh, I want to be around myself that long. Really? I'm going to be thinking my thoughts for half an hour? No way. So, but I will say that I have a sister that does a lot of meditation, and she actually goes to these week-long meditation retreats where nobody talks for the entire time. So they're eating mindfully, and they're sitting for hours all day, and And she said, by day 5, you're really, really tired of your thoughts, and you stop paying attention to them. Because you think the same thing over and over and over and over again. And so you kind of go, oh yeah, hi, it's you again. That being said, all of that being said, I have a list of some resources that you might try to help with a guided meditation. Okay. These are some websites, and I don't know if you want that or not. A couple of YouTube channels and some apps that are available out there. And there's one, meditainment.com has a really good pain management one, and it's free. I tried to list everything that is free on here. There are some that can be bought. My suggestion, though, is to listen to the person who's talking first to make sure that you can tolerate both the music and the voice. Because there are some of them that the music just makes you want to climb the nearest clock tower and do some damage. And there's some that their voice is like, there is no way I'm relaxing to this. There's nothing. I mean, this person is going to drive me insane. So my suggestion is make sure you listen to at least a little bit of a sample of whatever it is before you buy it. It's definitely worth buying if there's if it helps you and if it works. But the meditainment one has a good pain management one. Meditation Oasis has a podcast that's on pain that's really good. So it kind of helps you to think about, helps you to deal with that painful sensation while you're meditating. Okay. And then I put on here too, there's one called the Christian Meditator. If you're wanting something that's directed towards Christianity, I put that on there for you. On YouTube, I like the Honest Guys. They have a whole lot of different videos out there. They have one, I think that's 8 hours. That's for insomnia. So you can have it playing all night. Paul Miller has a good one, and so did Rita Hickman. That's on YouTube. And then the apps for iPhone and tablets and iPad. Meditation Oasis is a really great company. They have several that you can get for free. But they also have some that you can buy. They're not too expensive, but I really, really like them. They have one for sleeping that I use that really helps with insomnia. Andrew Johnson is a really good one. I'm not sure if he has anything for free, but it's a male voice, which is unique. But he has ones for sleep and ones for pain. His pain one's a little different. It's kind of, let's look at the pain and see if you can manipulate it and see if you can make it worse, see if you can make it better, and just know that you are in control of your sensations and in control of your perceptions. It's kind of an interesting one to play with. And the last one for the apps is the Insight Timer, and that one's just a timing meditation. You can just meditate time, but you can also connect and see you're meditating with 715 people. You just meditated with this many people that are also connected. There's a group on there for pain, people with chronic pain, so you can get on there and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this issue, or what do you people do when you have pain, when your pain's really bad and you're trying to meditate, you can't get through it. They also have guided meditations on there for free, so you can download and listen to. There's one for like a minute, and there's ones that are an hour long. So there's a whole wide range of available. And that way you can try out different people's voices too and see if you like those or not. All right. Any questions?
Thank you. I just have a feeling like anytime I sit down and try just to go blank, I fall asleep.
That means you need it. Okay. So if you, that's a good
It's just
question.
like, you know,
No.
if you try to just, and I go out.
Yeah, and that means you need the sleep. If you fall asleep during meditation, it just means you need to sleep.
Okay.
Okay, you needed that relaxation and rest time, so that's okay. That's okay.
So when I'm
We'll get
sleeping
to a
at the
point.
desk, you can, she's meditating, leave her alone.
That works.
Okay.
That works. If you need to, you can go back on one of my tables.
All
I'll throw a
right.
blanket over you.
For meditation break.
Alrighty, well, I hope it was helpful.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon. I'll go meditate.